We've also been told that some of you may wish to make comments rather than answer questions, or ask questions, so that we have Rosemary here who is going to take notes, and any notes of anything that constitutes a submission will be published on our website. So we have a website which we commend to you to have a look at. It contains a lot more than I'm going to run through this afternoon. There's an introduction page with, as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, a link through to the consultation map of where we are going. It's a little like, for those of you who are as old as I am, will remember Lonnie Donegan singing I've Been Everywhere Man. It's a bit like that over a 9-week period. I'm providing my young children with photographs to put in their bedrooms so that they can remember what their father's like before we eventually come home. Those are the locations that we are going to throughout regional New South Wales, and as you can see, Tamworth is in red because I've clicked on it, and the drop down at the bottom shows the time of the 2 sessions. We are undertaking 2 sessions at every location that we're going to, particularly to hold an evening session in order to make it possible for people who work during the daytime to come and talk to us. We're similarly doing a series of sessions around the metropolitan area. There is one to be added in the northwest where we're seeking somewhere between, for those of you who know the area, somewhere between the Mean Fiddler and the Outback Steakhouse in Kellyville as an appropriate sort of centre to the northwest sector. One thing that we are being careful to do as we go around is not use council venues. That was a conscious decision we took because, apart from anything else, the role of councils is a critical element of what we're considering. We don't want to be doing anything that appears to either link us to or make them part of this process, and that is something that we are doing protectively for both them and for us. So there's 4 steps in what we're dealing with. First is, what should be the objectives and philosophy of new planning legislation for New South Wales? A copy of this will be going on the internal website as well, including whether the Act should be broken up. Some people have suggested to us that it would be appropriate to have separate legislative frameworks for plan making and another one for development assessment, or whether we should continue to have the omnibus legislation that we've had since 1979. Having dealt with that, we would then move on to the question of plan making. That is, what sort of plans should there be? Who should make them? What should be the consultation processes for the making of them? Plans including environmental planning instruments like SEPPs and the like in the process. Who should have the right to be heard? What should be the nature of the right to be heard? What plans should be disallowable in whole or in part by the Houses of the Parliament, and things of that nature. The third element of the 4 that we are dealing with is how applications proposing development should be assessed and determined. Who should have the right to be heard during that process? What should be the nature of the body or bodies that deal with what types of applications, and that will include councils, IHAPs, Joint Regional Planning Panels, the Minister, the Planning Assessment Commission, the Land and Environment Court, and things of that nature. Finally, what should be the rights of appeal, review, conciliation, mediation, and the like during the determination process. One matter that has been of my experience earlier this year as part of the activities I undertake in the life at the Land and Environment Court that I've set aside for the time being. As part of the new residential development appeal process, I would go on site and I would say, the first question as part of the conciliation process, I would say to the council officer or the council's advocate, what changes to the applicant's plans does the council say are necessary to render the development capable of being given approval? And in 60% or so of the cases, the council representatives will say there are up to 4, 5 or 6 matters that need to be changed. They might be narrowing balconies and privacy screens and all of those sorts of things, not usually matters of major controversy. and the immediate reaction from the proponents will be, putting it politely, why didn't you tell me that 6 months ago and we would have settled this before we had to go to court? One of the things that we want to examine is what are the opportunities to push mediation and conciliation. I don't mean the sort of formal review processes under the Act that are there now, but an interactive process between proponent and determining authority earlier in the process rather than having to wait to get into legal proceedings before that happens. Now, sitting beside that, that is sort of what the legislation will look like. Sitting beside that is what would the government need to do to implement the legislation rather than simply have the legislative framework, because there are clearly things that need to be done in a government functioning sense to implement the legislation process. One of the matters that has been of considerable complaint to us in the stakeholder interest group meetings that we've been having in Sydney so far is the question of the speed or lack of it in getting concurrences where they're required from other government departments, and what, if anything, can be done in a government policy and administration sense to speed that process up in conjunction with the way the statutory process works. Now, this is the timeline for what we're dealing with. We are advising everybody that we talk to that if they want to put something to us in writing, we ask for that by the 4th of November. We are proposing that the Minister will release our issues paper in early December. At the moment it's tentatively scheduled for the 8th of December so that I can go on holidays on the 9th and avoid all of the flack that might flow from whatever we publish. Given that that is proximate to the traditional Christmas slowdown period, we are having an extensive period within which we are inviting comments on what we put out in the issues paper. They will be open until the 7th of February, and we hope to provide the government with our preferred model on both the legislation and implementation matters by the end of April. The issues paper is going to be in the form of short descriptors on the various topics, followed by a series of one or more rhetorical questions with respect to each of the areas. It will follow in broad the 4-step process that I described earlier. It will probably be, on present estimates, 50 or 60 pages long, and it will be covering the totality of the areas that are put to us. Now, some of it already comes with a fairly consistent stream of material coming out of the groups that we have met so far, right across the spectrum. We've met with people from the development end of the spectrum through to the parliamentary spokesman on planning for the Greens and the conservation groups at the others, and there are some fairly consistent themes running through that. We will be doing some preliminary drafting and indeed have started doing so that there is a fair prospect that we'll be able to hit this timeline, because the last of the consultation meetings occurs on about the 16th of November, so if we want to have the document published by the 8th of December, we'll need to get our skates on. We will refine the initial thoughts as we go through, and we expect to be able to put that document out through the Minister on the date that I have indicated. It's a fairly ambitious timetable. The Act, as you know, has been around for over 30 years. It's gone from being a comparatively slim volume to being a wheelbarrow load, perhaps beloved by the learned, noble and expensive profession that Mr Dyer and I share, but not terribly well loved by lots of other people. The process that we are undertaking is not one that should be regarded by anybody, least of all officers of the department, as a threatening one. It is one that in some respects provides a significant opportunity for re-legitimisation, as it were, of statutory planning and development determination in the eyes of the public, it being a concept some might suggest warrants a modest degree of rehabilitation in light of events and debate over the last year or so. Now, Ron and I are happy to give the undertaking that certainly I used to give in my political life, and he probably did as well, to answer or avoid any questions that you might wish to ask us.